What's up, guys? Welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about my number one tip to be able to get a 36 on the ACT reading section. Cool, let's get into it. So today we're going to, for the most part, be talking about a concept known as skimming. A lot of you in high school are used to having the teacher kind of hold your hand as you go through the books that you read and make sure that you read every single line of every single page. That's kind of the way we've been taught. Anything else is kind of considered to be bad reading habits. But the reality is, on the ACT, and even when you get into college, you just can't read the same way. You need to be able to develop a system that's faster and more efficient. So for some classes and for some texts, you're going to have to learn how to not read information. And that's what we'll be talking about today. So let's say you have your essay, your paragraph, whatever they've given you on the ACT. It's segmented out into separate paragraphs. There are certain spots in the essay that are way more likely than other spots to have the answers to the ACT questions. I'm going to outline each of those for you in what I call the priority list. If you follow this list, you will be able to find the answers much faster than before. The first thing on our priority list is the place where most of the answers are probably going to be found are in the first and last paragraph. These are the two most important paragraphs of the entire essay, and they usually give a baseline of what it's going to talk about as well as wrap it up with a similar note. Most of the answers will be found here. The second thing on our priority list is the first sentences of each paragraph. Most of the time in good writing, the first sentence of each paragraph indicates what the rest of the paragraph is going to say. Sometimes in college textbooks, it's necessary to only read the first sentences of each paragraph and nothing else in the entire essay so that you can get the main arguments. This is something that I practice almost all the time. When I'm reviewing an essay with my students, and because I've practiced this so many times, I'm able to answer all of the questions right only from reading the first sentences of every paragraph. Now, I'm not saying you should just go ahead and do that, but it's a great strategy to practice and to apply while you're still learning what to read and not to read. Number 3 on the priority list are the last sentences of each paragraph. These are also very important pieces of information that can indicate where the passage is going and moving between transitions of paragraphs. Number 4 on our priority list is the least important, and that is everything else, all the middle information. The answers are it is very unlikely that you will find the answers in these middle sections. So for the most part, you can skim over them or not read them at all. When we look at the priority list, we find that the first and last paragraph is on number 1 and number 2 is the first sentence. So we can take those two concepts and apply them together to understand that the very most important sentence in the whole essay is going to be the first sentence of the first paragraph. Also the last sentence of the first paragraph. Same thing with the last paragraph. First and last sentence of the last paragraph are very, very important. These two hotspots always contain answers. There is always a question on this that's asking about something in that piece of the essay. So, why is it important to read in this way? Why is it important to read with a priority list and only reading the first sentences, not reading any of the middle information, sometimes reading the last sentences? Our brain works in very different ways depending on what mode we're in. There's a really cool book on this called A Mind for Numbers that I read once. And it talks about how there's two different modes our brain goes into: focused mode and diffused mode. These two different modes help us to be able to solve problems quickly and be able to get the answers we need the fastest way possible. One is like a flashlight with a straight beam. This is focused mode. If you are concentrated intently on a math problem and you're really focused, you're really in the zone, you are in this mode. And it's very useful. But on the reading section, it is not what we want. It is not useful. The second mode is called diffused mode. Let's imagine we take that flashlight and we put a diffuser on it so that the light shines in a much wider, broader cone. While we're in diffused mode, we're able to pick up pieces of information that otherwise would have been outside of the flashlight beam had we been in the focus mode. This represents our ability to connect ideas that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to connect. So how do we get into this diffused mode? We need to be relaxed. We need to be sometimes distracted. So one of the ways that I tell my students how they can get into diffused mode is they need to treat the reading test with confidence. Treat it as if it's something that they've done a million times. Besides just treating it with confidence, if they ever feel like they're getting bogged down or lost in what's going on in the paragraph, they're locking down into diffused mode, and they need to take a deep breath, look at the corner of the room, distract themselves, and then come back and refocus on the priority list. First sentences. What could possibly go in between those? Your brain will fill in the rest of the information between each first sentence and allow you to activate your diffuse mode and get your optimal ACT reading score. Awesome. To review, today we went over my number one tip to get a 36 on the ACT reading section, and that is skimming. To skim, we used our priority list of the most to least important, the most being first and last paragraphs, the second, first sentences of paragraphs, the third, last sentences of paragraphs, and fourth, everything else. I hope that this is helpful, and I hope that this is something that will allow you to improve your reading score as you go on. And stay tuned in for future videos. Also, check out the online course that I'm going to be creating, and I'll drop a link below when it's finished. But thank you guys so much. I'll see you next time.